Hello dear beloved listener, the testimony I want to share with you today was received by one of our team members last week. We have reviewed this testimony and today we want to share it with you. This is a testimony of a lady who have made researches on how to hear God, but in all her research she couldn't find the answer to her request. But one faithful day she encountered what changed her reality, and she sent this testimony so that others who are also asking same question will learn from her experience. So I beg you, please give me few minutes of your time to share this powerful testimony with you. By the end of this testimony you will understand what it takes to hear God's voice and how you have been doing it wrongly. Before I share her testimony with you, please I would want to know where you are listening from in the comment section. Also, if you have any personal prayer request, you can also leave it in the comments section so that our prayer team will continue to commit you in prayer. Enjoy listening. Hello, Daily Renewal. My name is Mirabelle. I'm 24 years old and I live in Boise, Idaho. I work at a coffee shop downtown, and until 6 months ago, I thought hearing God's voice was something only special people could do. Pastors, prophets, people who had their lives together. Not someone like me. I grew up going to church every Sunday. My parents were faithful people, good people. But even though I heard sermons about God speaking, about prayer, about having a relationship with Jesus, I never actually heard anything myself. I would pray before meals, pray before bed, but it always felt like I was talking to the ceiling. Like my words just bounced off the walls and fell back on me. When I was 23, something changed. I was going through the hardest time of my life. I had just lost my job at a marketing firm, my boyfriend of 3 years had left me, and my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer. I felt completely alone. One night, I was sitting on my couch, crying so hard I could barely breathe, and I said out loud, "God, if you're real, I need to hear from you. I can't do this anymore." Nothing happened that night. But the next morning, my friend Sarah called me. She told me about this book she had been reading about hearing God's voice. She said it had changed her life. Normally, I would have rolled my eyes. I'd heard promises like that before. But something in me was desperate enough to try anything. The book arrived 3 days later. I sat down with it that evening after work, my coffee growing cold beside me as I read. The author talked about 4 simple steps: getting quiet, picturing Jesus with you, listening for thoughts that come spontaneously, and writing them down. That was it. For things. I remember thinking it sounded too simple. But the author kept saying that this was normal, that every Christian should be able to hear God's voice, that Jesus himself only did what he heard and saw the Father doing. If Jesus needed to hear God constantly, how much more did I need it? That night I decided to try. I went into my bedroom, sat on my bed with my journal and a pen, and I got quiet. Really quiet. I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and just sat there. At first, my mind was racing with all my problems, bills, my mom's treatments, the job applications I'd sent out with no responses. But I kept breathing slowly, trying to calm down. Then I did what the book said. I pictured Jesus. I'd never done this before, not on purpose. I closed my eyes and tried to see him in my mind. At first, nothing came. Just darkness. But then I remembered the book said to picture myself as a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, because it helps you get past your adult doubts. So I did. I pictured myself as a little girl, maybe 7, wearing my favorite purple dress from childhood. And then I pictured Jesus sitting next to me on a bench. I didn't see his face clearly at first. Just the sense of someone being there, someone safe. I kept my eyes closed and asked, "Jesus, are you really here?" And then something happened. A thought dropped into my mind, so gentle I almost missed it. It wasn't my voice. It felt different, warmer. The thought said he had always been there, even when I couldn't see him. My heart started beating faster. Was that really God? Or was I making it up? But I remembered what the book said. Write it down. Don't test it yet. Just write. So I opened my eyes, picked up my pen, and wrote down what I'd heard. And as I wrote, more thoughts came. They kept flowing like water from a tap I'd finally figured out how to turn on. The thoughts told me that I was loved, that I wasn't alone, that he had plans for me even when everything felt broken. I wrote for maybe 10 minutes and by the end I was crying again, but this time they were different tears. I still wasn't sure if it was real. So I did what the book suggested. I sent what I'd written to Sarah and asked her what she thought. She texted back within an hour and said, "Mirabelle, that's God. I can feel it. That's really Him talking to you." Something broke open inside me when I read her text. I'd actually heard God's voice. Mirabelle, the girl who served lattes and couldn't keep a boyfriend and whose life was falling apart. I'd heard from God. I started doing this every day. Every morning before work, I would sit with my journal, get quiet, picture Jesus with me and write. Some days the flow came easily. Other days I struggled. But slowly I was learning a new language, the language of flow, of spontaneous thoughts that weren't my own. About 2 weeks in, something bigger happened. I was sitting in my usual spot on my bed, eyes closed, picturing Jesus next to me. But this time, instead of just sensing Him there, I actually started to see things more clearly. I saw Him turn and look at me, and even though I couldn't see every detail of His face, I saw His eyes. They were so kind. So impossibly kind. And then He stood up and held out His hand to me, to the little girl version of me I was picturing. I took His hand and suddenly the scene changed. We weren't on my bed anymore. We were somewhere else. I saw a huge open space like a field made of light. The ground beneath us seemed to glow softly, and the sky above was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Layers of colors I don't have names for, moving like water, like breathing. And in the distance I saw something that made me freeze. There was a massive tree. It was so tall I couldn't see the top, and its branches spread out like arms reaching toward the sky. But this tree wasn't made of wood. It was made of fire, golden, living fire that didn't burn but somehow gave life. I could see fruit hanging from the branches, fruit that glowed with the same golden light. Around the tree I saw figures. Angels, I realized. Some were standing near the trunk, their hands raised like they were worshiping. Others were tending to the tree, reaching up to touch the branches, and everywhere they touched, more fruit appeared. And then I saw something that made my breath catch. There were names written on the fruit. Each piece of fruit had a name glowing on its surface. Jesus, still holding my hand, spoke to me, not out loud, but somehow I heard Him in my heart. He told me that this was the tree of purpose. He said every person who belongs to Him has fruit on this tree, fruit that represents the purpose He's planted in them. He said my fruit was there too. Where? I asked, my voice small. He pointed and I saw it. A piece of fruit about halfway up the tree, glowing brighter than some of the others around it. And there, written in light, was my name, Mirabelle. He told me that my purpose had been growing even when I couldn't see it, even during the hard months when I thought I was forgotten. He said the fruit was almost ready, almost ripe, and soon He would show me what it was for. I opened my eyes, back in my bedroom, tears streaming down my face. I grabbed my journal and wrote everything down as fast as I could, my hands shaking. I didn't understand what it all meant, but I knew it was real. Over the next few months, I kept meeting with Jesus this way. Every morning became an adventure. Some days He showed me pictures. Other days I just heard His voice as flowing thoughts while I wrote. But everything started to change. My mom's cancer treatments were brutal, and there were days I didn't think she'd make it. But every morning I would ask Jesus about her, and He would show me things or tell me things that gave me hope. One morning He showed me a picture of my mom dancing. Just dancing in a field, healthy and strong, her hair grown back. He told me to hold on to this picture, to see it as already done. I did. Every time fear tried to creep in, I would close my eyes and see that picture. I would see my mom dancing. 3 months later, the doctors said the cancer was in remission. My mom cried when she told me. I cried too, but I wasn't surprised. I'd already seen it. My job situation changed too. I'd been applying everywhere with no luck, feeling like a failure. One morning during my time with Jesus, I asked Him what I should do. He told me to wait, that something was coming I hadn't planned for. A week later, Sarah called me. Her company was looking for someone to manage their social media and marketing. She wanted to recommend me. I got the job and it paid more than my old position. But more than that, I loved it. I actually loved going to work. The more I practiced hearing God's voice, the more normal it became. I started hearing Him throughout the day, not just in the mornings. I'd be making a latte at the coffee shop, and a thought would drop in about praying for the customer in front of me. I'd be driving home, and I'd sense Him telling me to take a different route, and I'd later find out there had been an accident on my usual road. It was like living with someone whispering directions in my ear, someone who could see everything I couldn't. One morning about 5 months after I started this journey, I sat down for my usual time with Jesus. I got quiet, pictured myself as a little girl, and saw Him sitting next to me on a bench like always. But this time He stood up and told me He wanted to show me something important. He took my hand, and again the scene shifted. This time we were somewhere I'd never seen before. We stood at the edge of what looked like an enormous council chamber. The walls were made of crystal that seemed to pulse with light, and the floor was so clear it was like standing on glass with stars beneath it. In the center of the room was a circular table, and seated around it were 12 beings, angels I knew, though they looked more powerful than I'd imagined. They weren't the soft, gentle creatures from paintings. They were strong, almost frightening, with faces that seemed to shift between fierce and kind. I held Jesus' hand tighter, suddenly scared. One of the angels at the table stood. He was taller than the others, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like thunder rolling across mountains. But I didn't hear words exactly, I just understood what he was saying. They were discussing nations. Specifically, they were discussing my nation, America. I saw maps appear above the table, glowing in the air. I saw cities marked with different colors. Some red, some gold, some dark. The angel explained that red meant danger, gold meant awakening, and dark meant spiritual sleep. I watched as the angels discussed what was coming. They talked about shaking, about things being exposed, about a great dividing that was already beginning. But they also talked about awakening, about a generation that would rise up and learn to hear God's voice, to see what He was doing, to work with Him like Jesus did. Then Jesus spoke. He told the angels that it was time to release the assignment. Time to wake up His people who had been sleeping, who had been living like they couldn't hear Him when they absolutely could. One of the angels looked directly at me. His eyes were like fire, and I wanted to look away but couldn't. He said my name, Mirabel. He told me that I was part of this awakening. That learning to hear God's voice wasn't just for me, it was so I could teach others. He said the fruit on my tree was almost ripe, and when it was ready, I would help others find their fruit too. Jesus squeezed my hand and told me not to be afraid. He said He would be with me every step, that I would never do this alone. He said all I had to do was keep listening, keep looking, keep writing what I heard and saw. Then the scene faded and I was back in my bedroom. I sat there for a long moment, my journal open on my lap, not sure if I could even write what I'd just seen. But slowly I started. I wrote for almost an hour, filling page after page. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, things have been different. I started sharing my story with people at church, just casually, telling them how I learned to hear God's voice. And people are hungry for it. They want to know how. They want to try. Last week, I met with 3 women from church in my tiny apartment. I taught them the 4 steps. Get quiet, picture Jesus, tune to the flow of thoughts, and write. We sat together and I watched as each of them tried it for the first time. One woman, Maria, started crying while she wrote. When she finished, she looked up at me and said, "He told me he's proud of me. I've never heard that before." Another woman, Janet, saw a picture of Jesus holding her as a child, and she said it was the first time she'd felt safe in years. I watched them experience what I'd experienced, and something clicked inside me. This was the fruit. This was what I was meant to do. Help people hear the voice of the one who loves them most. I'm still learning. I still have days where I doubt, where I wonder if I'm making it all up. But then I remember the tree made of fire, the fruit with my name on it, the council chamber where angels discussed awakening. I remember Jesus' hand in mine, steady and sure. And I remember what he keeps telling me in those quiet morning moments. This is normal. This is how it's supposed to be. His sheep hear his voice. I'm his sheep. You're his sheep. We can all hear him. I never thought my life would look like this. I thought I was just a girl who made coffee and struggled to pay rent. But now I know I'm more. I'm a daughter who hears her father's voice. I'm someone with purpose growing on a tree made of fire. I'm part of an awakening. And it all started with 4 simple steps and the courage to believe that maybe, just maybe, God actually wanted to talk to me. He does. And he wants to talk to you too. All you have to do is get quiet, look for him, tune to the flow, and write. That's it. For things. And I promise you, if you do them, you'll hear him. Because he's been talking all along. We just needed to learn how to listen. Thank you for listening. If you have been blessed by this testimony, I want you to write in the comments what you have learned. Also, if you have not liked this video, please do. It will help more people who are in search to hear God to see this video. Also, share this video to your loved ones so that they will also benefit from this message. Thank you once again for listening, and may God bless you.